Hello anybody and welcome back to Let's Play Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy Extra Game, also known as Hard Mode. I'm Mr. Devious, or just Deeb, and in this episode, the third episode, also known as the finale, we are going to take on King Dedede. But in order to face the king himself, we have to go through each of the bosses that we already fought before. So let us begin with the door to Whispy Woods, which will teleport us all the way back to Green Greens, where immediately there is a cake throwing stuff at us. So I never mentioned this in... Just need to be careful. You want to conserve your health for when you get up to the boss when you do these mini sections because there's no healing along the way. And as I said, Whispy Woods is possibly the hardest boss in all of Extra Game, interestingly enough. So you want to be careful here. And they have weird stuff like this tree that's just kind of hanging in the middle of nowhere like some kind of ROM hack, but you know, whatever. So anyway, it would never really completely clear. Oh, also when you get to the end of these sections, you'll just find a dancing Kirby. You just gotta touch him and it'll clear out the enemies. So we immediately come to Whispy Woods, and we need to beat him again. Although it won't play the boss music, it'll just play the Green Greens themes, which is, you know, fine. So you want to get in the air and immediately resume the battle tactics that you did the first time you fought him. It is very possible that I will die here because this is a tough boss, and, you know, apples will just spawn on my head. That works. So, yeah. Where was I going with this? Right. It's never made clear in the actual game of Kirby's Dream Land of what the plot is until the very end sequence, but basically the plot amounts to all the food in Dreamland was stolen by King Dedede, and Kirby's just trying to get it back because that's kind of a dick move. Dedede stealing all the food. People are gonna die if you starve them. It's not featured in the game. I'm sure it was in the manual, but back on the Game Boy, they didn't really have a lot of space to work with. So this is kind of what they had to go with. If you read the manual, that would be your answer. That's how you would know. And that takes care of Dedede. Whispy Woods. The easiest one. And we get this music that's different. Right. Let's go after Lololo and La. So we go back to Castle Lolo. And yeah, on the Game Boy, they had a lot of limitations. Like, I think... Oh, and I'm dead. Like, even more limitations than the original NES. So they couldn't really fit any big story in there or any cutscenes per se, except for the one at the end. And I mean, sure, you also had the what am I trying to say here? An example of that is the dance, which I talked about in an earlier episode, where Kirby dancing is just a combination of his normal sprites, like standing or hitting a wall or crouching. Like that one right there. That is my favorite dancing Kirby. I just want to look at him for a couple more seconds. Alright, I'm good. So that takes care of the Gordo, and we come back to Lololo and La. And they're also still pretty much the easiest bosses of this mode. Interesting thing about... Well, I'll save it for later, but it looks like that is why you don't want to absorb a box from the front, because that is how they'll hit you. They are too fast for you to eat a box and then get out of the way, unless, you know, you get lucky. So the best way to do it is to just do what I'm doing here. Jump up behind them, spit them out behind them. That takes care of that. I'm actually curious if we'll ever see Lololo and La outside of a Kirby game again, because, well, they were their own thing before they became part of the Kirby games. So that's interesting in the Adventures of Lolo, which I talked about in a previous episode. And while they're not, like, exactly classics that are wanted and beloved, I mean, somebody must have liked Adventures of Lolo. I mean, apparently it wasn't even a bad game, and that is also a bad time. I'm taking actually a lot of hits in this fight, but it's okay because I got it down to 1. But it would be interesting if we saw Lololo and La again in a different place, like in the new Super Smash Bros. 4. I mean, it might sound weird, but Ice Climbers and friggin' Pit from Kid Icarus made reappearances. So we only have 3 life bars left, and we have 2 bosses, and then Dedede, and I don't think we're gonna make it to the end, but I'm not gonna kill myself. I'm not gonna do that, even though that would probably be the rational thing to do. So we come back to Float Islands. Interesting thing about Float Islands is it never had a mini-boss, it just had the boss Kabula. And that's interesting, I suppose. But it is interesting to note. This Kirby's not really, he's just kind of doing a disco pose, I guess. We will probably die here if that hermit crab doesn't kill us. So So we come and eat this sweet potato mint leaf thing, and we come back to Kabula, who is probably going to kill us. As I said before, one of the best ways to fight him is to lead him. That is, stay ahead of his movements when he's moving up and down, and just kind of dodge between his triple shots. And you should be okay. I'm actually doing really well for only having... Wow. I only took one hit in that. That is the best I've ever done at Kabula. What I wanted to say regarding Kabula is... Even though he didn't appear in the... Can I go in that moon? No. Even though he didn't appear in the Superstars Spring Breeze version of this game, and that's a really easy way to get to the end. And then we fight Krako again, who we fought in the last episode, who has the same pattern, so he's really easy. So I'll just talk about Kabula. Even though he didn't appear in Superstars Spring Breeze because they cut out a stage entirely, he did appear in Superstar Ultra, which was on the DS, The Revenge of the King, which was essentially Spring Breeze but harder. So Extra Game kind of came back in the DS version, in the DS game, as Revenge of the King, with the harder bosses, with the return of Kabula. But you only fought Kabula. It was still only like 4 stages long, but... I mean, it technically was 5 stages, but the 4th stage was just the sky outside of Mount Dedede, where you just fought Kabula, who was a bigger blimp. And apparently, Kabula is a female. I don't know how a blimp can be a female, but, well, I don't know. It also got a major update in what it looked like, and all the bosses were also harder, and they didn't quite follow these patterns. Well, what happens when you game over at this point in the game? You might be wondering. Will we be able to just continue where we left off? Can we just kill Krako and then go on to Dedede? Answer is... no! You gotta fight all the bosses again, and this is the real trouble. You might also notice that my score has been cut in half, so that is basically the penalty for game overing. And I've game overed twice now, which is okay for extra mode. I will see you back at Krako. And I mean, losing points hasn't really been a big deal in video games for years, and it really certainly wasn't a big deal here. I mean, the game doesn't have a battery. It doesn't save your scores or anything. It's just kind of like something you would say to other people, and this was kind of in that era where games were making the adjustment from arcades to home consoles. So games were transitioning from just play as long as you can without dying, but you will inevitably die, to games with like cohesive stories and endings, and the score system just seemed to exist as a relic of that, and it doesn't really have a place. I mean, nobody really cared about the scores in this game usually, unless they were specifically doing like a score run. I mean, I guess you could say the same about arcade games, but if the end goal is just to get to the end of the game, you're not really interested in getting a score in the end. I mean, the score was the main motivation in playing arcade games, because it just went on and on until you died, and I'm just getting my butt handed to me while I'm having this conversation. But that's okay, because I cleared out Whispy Woods. Not Whispy Woods, Krako. So with all those bosses defeated, we have 1 life left. Yes, I did get killed a couple more times. And with that, we are going to go into the final level, I guess you could say. We've defeated these enemies. Now that brings us to the final boss of the game, King Dedede, where he will immediately run at us with his hammer. King Dedede is pretty much unchanged from Extra Game. The only real difference is he will, do moves where he just kind of jumps extra times, but ultimately the main difference is that he is faster. He does the same amount of damage. He might have, jump multiple times, but ultimately he is the same boss, and he has a ton of health, 10 health, which is a lot in this game, and he is he is tough, and it looks like I'm going to die here, but I'm not going to suicide because I want to get back into his rhythm, into his pattern, because that is the importance. Because if I die on my last life against Dedede, I have to fight all those other bosses again, and I don't want to do that. I really don't. And that is one of the things that makes Extra Games so, I don't know if I would say difficult, but, not fun to do. So that is King Dedede. As we can see, this game kind of... Oh, he fell on me and I died. Well, this game, since this is his first game, it already kind of codifies King Dedede as a fighter. How he just throws his weight around it is kind of a klutz in battle, but he pretty much has all the moves he would have in future games and also in Smash Bros. Brawl. His falling move, falling on the ground, being one of his signature moves. But I think his most dangerous move is probably his suction. But your safest bet in this game is to keep your distance and stay in the air above him, because you only really need to worry about him jumping from time to time. If he jumps off screen, he has to jump back on screen. However, the stars that he knocks out will hurt you, so you want to be careful here, and I have to focus. When you're in the air, he kind of can't really do much against you, so that is, unless he jumps, but that's about it. But he recovers faster from his fall times, so this is a hard boss, and if you're... Oh, man, I am not in a good way right now. At all. This is going to be close. I mean, he has 6 health, I have 2. I mean, I might just get killed here really quickly, really soon. So, I don't really know what I'm going to say here. I just don't want to go through all those bosses again. I really don't. And he can jump and hit you, and I'm down to 1 HP. This looks like it's going to be the end of me. Oh boy, this sucks. This sucks. Also kind of funny, if you game over here and have to fight all the bosses again, you basically get the points you lost. And that's another game over. At least I get my points back. I'll see you back at Dedede. Oh! So, I guess if you beat all the bosses, they don't make you fight the bosses again, and you can just go straight to Dedede. That's good game design. I like that. I guess. I mean, they're not trying to just kill you with tedium. They're actually pitting your skills against the boss, and I actually really like that. I didn't know that. I just assumed because if you killed some of the bosses, but not all of them, and then the bosses killed you, they made you do it again. I thought that if you had to fight Dedede and lost, then he would send you back too, but I guess not, and that's great. So when he jumps off screen is a pretty good guarantee of him jumping back on screen and getting you a star that you can spit back at him. He also had another fight in Return of the King, Kirby Superstar Ultra in Return of the King, which was Spring Breeze but harder, aka the extra game of that game's remake, except that was a radically different fight where he had a mechanized hammer and a metal mask. And it was just called Mask Dedede, and it was a crazy fight. However, what makes extra game harder in this game than in that game is that there's still no copy powers, so you entirely have to base your fight here around dodging Dedede, as I have failed to do. Whereas future Kirby games with their copy abilities gave you the ability to sort of tough it out, to just be able to wail on a boss until they're dead. This game entirely forces you to base your strategy around dodging until you get the opportunity to attack, as you can see here with Dedede. Oh no. And that's that attack. It's no fun to get sucked up and then get hurt. If he has his hammer out, if you keep low, he might slam it on the ground. If you're high in the air, I think he'll always jump and try to hit you. But we're getting close here, so I cut back in. I don't want to show all 10 health bars because it can take a while before he does the moves that are conducive to you being able to hit him. But now that we're almost even in health here, I feel that it is okay to just show the rest of it. And he can just keep doing certain moves. I think he might just randomly roll his move sets, and it's kind of annoying. Oh, God. Oh, I think it did hit him. Aw, crap. Okay, 3-2, we're back to this. Last life, not that continuing is really a big deal, but I guess if I want to protect my score, that is important, I guess. So, 3-2. Can we do this on the last life? I hope so. And we almost got him. One more hit, and he is going to be out of here. But 2 more hits for me, and I'll be out too, and he can hit me pretty... Oh, this is it. It comes down to this. It comes down to the wire of 1-1. Will I be able to do this? Find out next time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to show it off here. And, oh, bullcrap. Ah! probably one of the most important things to remember is just how quickly he can move from one move into the next, and always keeping your distance from him. Even when he lands from that jump, you want to keep at a distance. The trick is figuring out how far you have to be to absorb, how close you have to be to suck up the star without being so close that he can just move into the next hit. But we already have him down to 1 hit, and we're down to 2 hits again, so I think we can do this, and nope! Nope! Oh. Ah! Got him! Goodbye, King Dedede. And what do our 5 stars do now that we have collected them all from all the bosses? Kirby absorbs them. And he becomes a giant that will devour all mankind. No, in actuality, he blimps up and carries Dedede's castle and rains food down on the land. Yeah, the end. So, yeah, that is the end of Sunday Rain. That is the end of Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy Extra game. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pretty hard experience. I didn't expect King Dedede to give me that much trouble, but as you can see, it is a challenging game in its own right. It's mostly challenging if you play the main game, Bubby, and then immediately go into the hard mode. And then it's just such a stark contrast and a different game entirely. Well, not entirely, but you know what I mean. And I hope it was fun to watch. It was hard to play. And thank you so many players. That's awfully presumptuous of you. Kirby's Dream Land presented by HAL Laboratory Incorporated and Nintendo, because you needed me to read that for you. And the game thanks you for playing. So, if your reward for beating the main game was that you got to see, or that you unlocked hard mode, you might be wondering, what's your reward for beating hard mode? Is there a reward, or is beating hard mode its own reward? I mean, you get a bye-bye regardless, and it rains fish and food down on us, but the other reward for beating extra mode is cast of characters. Now we get to know the names of the enemies. Gordo, Bronto Burt, Waddle Dee, Waddle Doo, and Shotzo. 2 of those enemies were replaced. Now I got no more enemies. Poppy Brothers Jr., Twizzy, Cappy, and Grizzo. Cappy was a cake, and Twizzy was a chicken. Poppy Brothers Sr. and Whispy Woods. Whispy Woods, how are you? One of the hardest bosses. And we have more enemies. Booler, Two-Face, Glunk, Hurley, Mumbies, Broomhatta, and Flapper. Most of those enemies were replaced. Here we have Lololo and Lalala, even though I think they were just called Lolo and Lala in their own games. We come to the tropical enemies, 2 of which were replaced. Kaboo, Blipper, Squisher, Whizzer, and Coner. Coner? And because there was no mid-boss of Stage 3, we just have Kaboola, who looks pretty cool in the remake, but... And we come to the sky enemies. Cool. We got Puffy, a cool ghost with shades. Kukler, Dizzy, Sir Kibble, and Scarfy. And then we have Kracko and Kracko Jr., who wasn't specifically called Kracko Jr. in this game, but Kracko Jr. is just infantile Kracko. And now we get the extra mode enemies, such as Koozer, Tukey, and Blopper. I do wonder what the process for naming these guys is. Mr. P. Umpkin, Gaspar, Chucky, and Sculler. Okay. Oh, that crab was a new enemy. Peezer, Flotso, Grumples, and Blatzy. Grumples, that's a great name. And Whiskers, I knew it was a cat. Cockun, Benny? Boomer and Benny. And the big man himself, King Dedede. And that comes to an end. That brings this LP to a close, I suppose. Once we have seen all the enemies, though, I think we get a little cutscene. You're our hero! Press down, B, and select on the title screen. You also unlock this. Down, B, and select. Also, Dedede's kind of throwing up. When you beat the original game, he falls down here the same way, but he throws a tantrum and runs away. But when you beat him on extra mode... Aww. Aw, that's sad. Kirby, ever the good sport, ever the friendly person. So I guess I could show off the configure mode, because once you go back to the main screen, or actually once you get to this point, you have to turn off the game. That's pretty much it. I could show off configure mode, but I'm not going to, because it's not worth just restarting the game to get that footage. Basically, it just lets you listen to the sound. It lets you adjust how many lives and how much HP you have. Yeah, how much HP you have, how many lives you have, and lets you listen to sound tests. So that's pretty cool. However, I think all in all, I've shown off everything there is that is worth showing off in Kirby's Dream Land extra game. I hope it was fun for you to watch, and I hope to get started on LP number 5 pretty soon. That might be a bit it'll probably be longer than this one. This will probably be my shortest LP. I don't actually know what I'm doing next, so I hope to figure that out soon. And if you like this LP, thank you for watching. If you didn't like it, well, thank you for watching too. I mean, even if you didn't like it. And I guess next LP is going to be a mystery, and I hope to see somebody in the next one. Goodbye.